Hi, this is Eli Ochiltree of the SnoKing Beekeepers Association, and this is our February 15th, 2023 monthly meeting. And we're going to record just part of this, maybe not most of the discussion, because I never know if everyone's comfortable with it. And you can black out your picture because I'm not smart enough to know how to really show just the presentation. Sorry, that's me. I'm not that tech smart yet. Hey, it might happen. So we're going to start with quick business. I turned off recording. Oh, at the end. Okay. Oh, get your screen pictures ready. I like to tell people that right at the beginning. Post any notes you want to in the chat, and I can kind of condense them and put them later on a Facebook post, comments, links. I threw a couple links in there already. And it's really nice if you can show us something that you want to talk about or that's interesting. I'll give you some quick, I think I gave you all these announcements before, but what the State Beekeeping Association is doing, then our club announcements. Oh, and I worked a little bit on the website. If you go to the website, there's now a new page called Calendar. So you can sort of tell what class we're working on and what days we're going to start the hive sides. I started putting the hive sides up there. And I'm going to put on hive sides, if we are going to go out to somebody's house and do a nuke install, for example, I think on the 8th it says tentative Tacoma. Somebody in Tacoma said they would host. Hey, if you want to open up your front yard a little bit to other people, that's great. And we'll help you install your nuke and talk about your apiary location and the forage around your location and anything else that seems like a good thing to do. If you want to invite the people to your hive side, you have people in mind already down in Tacoma. There's a Pierce County Club already down there. So I think that probably that person will invite for there. But we're going to have another one in Woodinville on the 22nd, I think. That's tentative again. I actually haven't answered the email. Maria, if you're out there, I'm answering yes. I put you down on the calendar. Tentative. We never know when those nukes and packages are going to come in. Newsletters, past newsletters. On the home page, when you click on newsletters, you can get to the old newsletters. And sometimes there was something you were interested in. It could be a link, it could be an article. And how do you get back to it? So the past newsletters are on there. And the YouTube channel has, like the recording today, goes on there. And that will be public. Your class recordings are usually unlisted, but monthly meetings should be public. Getting together actually in person is on hold till May. The hive sites I mentioned, we're going to do a couple of hive sites, at least at Maltby. I know, Maltby, Echo Lake, in the middle of nowhere. But there are people who would like to see an OAV gun, an OAV wand used. We can do that when it's cold. We just keep shivering, okay? While we're doing it. And we can talk about what we did for winterization and what we're going to be taking off as the weather gets warmer. And I can do a mock nuke package installation while we're there. Anything that people are unsure of, we can walk through it. And May we will just start. Even if the weather's miserable, we now have a place that we can stand out of the rain if everything goes really bad. But it can't be as bad as last year. Come on, it just can't be that cold another spring. The nuke supplier list, did I put that next? Yes, just got this onto the Facebook group. Can send it to anybody, and I'll get it onto the website. I think the 2022 one is there, and this is the 2023. It's not highly accurate. It's slapped together, but people always ask me about where to get bees. Well, I hate to brag, but when you get established, you don't buy bees anymore. Either you decide you're going to overwinter a few extra, so you always have your 2, 3, whatever you want in the spring, or you just simply do get better at it. You figure out your place, your wind situation, your dampness situation, the feed, you figure it out and it works. Honest. I'm not making this up. It really happens. The first year or two, I know it's traumatic. I know. People feel terrible when they say they've got a dead out. I put everything in alphabetical order. I don't really recommend one over another. We don't get anything for doing this. Check the information. Call. I tried to give websites, emails, phones. And a lot of the beekeepers want you to text. They don't have time to answer that stinking phone in the middle of working on making up nukes packages, and they're trying to do everything at once. It gets really, really busy for them very shortly. So call now. You might talk to a live person. You get a little later in the season, very good chance you better text, and emails take time to answer. Texts make people keep it down to 25 words instead of getting talkative. And then read the website, read everything that your package supplier put out for you, please, as a kindness to them and for yourself. There's some interesting things that are being done. I wouldn't mind going through the package and nuke supply. Did you know that you can get by private airplane, if you are on the islands in the San Juans, the Northwest Bee Supply actually delivers. The guy likes to run around with his little Cessna, I guess, and deliver the nukes onto the island. I didn't know that. And that is apparently it's Northwest Bee Supply. And they apparently have the most drop-off distribution points. So I know a lot of people want local, they want Saskatchewan, they want something specific. But when it came to the number of drop-off points, there was one supplier that outshone everyone else. On the other hand, there's another supplier that has 10 strains of queens. If you pre-order and say you want a certain type, you're looking for the Purdue ankle biter, you're looking for the Saskatchewan, you're looking for something, he's got it. But, I mean, that's incredible. And it was like that. There were a lot of really interesting things. Ty got nukes from the Olympic Wilderness Apiaries. Olympic Wilderness Apiaries is really into genetics, breeding, selection, utilizing everything that's naturally there in feral hives. Going to their website is just fun to read up on what they're doing. You realize, wow, they took on a big project. They're expensive though, and they get those until late in the year. They're not even taking orders for like the nukes yet. Well, they'll put you on the wait list. I think they might take payment, but they're not going to promise you how many they're going to have. So right now, they are doing one thing. They're taking the orders for one thing, and it's written down. It's on the list. I didn't get everything right, okay? So, and never make assumptions. It's the question you don't ask that's going to get you into trouble. Most nukes are 5 deep frames. Most packages are 3 pounds. I was pleasantly surprised that there are people who are doing medium frames more and more for those of us who do not want to lift heavy deeps all the time. And you can go to an 8 frame deep to cut down weight, but the 10 frame Western is very stable, very practical. Everything 10 frames still fits it. Dropping screens, lids, bottoms, everything. So it's really kind of nice to have that cutting down the weight of the box by like 20%. So I was really surprised. And I think that leads to my next slide. I forgot when I was reviewing the 2022 WASBA conference, there was a man who spoke, the John Jacobs of Old Saul Apiaries, and they're known for a long time for working on local and survivor stock and looking at, I think, carniolans and such. Well, anyway, he did a whole talk on what goes into making great queens. And really, it was a talk about how he raises the queens, how he puts together nukes, how he does all kinds of different things. It was really fascinating. And he really wants to sell what he calls the super nuke. He gives you 8 frames, Western, in the box even, in the woodenware. So when you look at prices, for example, his price might look really high, but he's talking about giving it to you in the box, I believe. Several of the people were. and like old Olympic wilderness apiaries was. But then you turn around, and I think it was Tim of Stanwood Bees who said, bring your own box. I'll put the 5-frame nuke in, and if you have the extra 5 frames, put them there, and you take it home that way. I don't have to keep rebuying expensive woodenware, and you've got the bees already installed, the 5-frame nuke put into your 8 or 10 frame. So read the instructions. Everybody's instructions were different. All right. Now that what I think kind of boring announcements. I did this last time. I know that WASBA is planning a lot of stuff with the new president and the new work they're doing on getting the Master Beekeeper program going within the year, we hope. And they've also got a family day planned. It's for beekeepers, as I understand it, and their families. So mark July 22nd, especially if you're in the area, okay? Especially if you're down there. And then the conference. It's set in kind of an odd location, first weekend of October, as it usually is. And it's, look, you can look this up, Olympia Hotel at Capitol Lake. I looked it up. Okay, there's lots of parking. It will be hybrid. That's about all I know. And our president of WASBA is very interested in working with veterans. And that's why I put healing through hives here. Bo, I think I spelled his name right. And there's ways to contact him. It was in the conference. He did a talk in the conference about helping veterans reintegrate into private life and deal with PTSD and meet other people. That's a big part of reintegrating into any community, is meeting people and having something to talk about. And I just put the links in the chat. I decided to just put this conference this past fall and the 2020 conference for WASBA in the chat. I don't know that they're going out on the public internet, but if you're attending a meeting, you're a member of this club. I've decided I'm putting it there. And we paid membership as a club. We also went and sponsored a vendor booth there. We contributed, so they kind of owe us a little. Oh, classes are always ongoing. There's a new one. Everybody who's signing up now goes into the new one, the one that starts March 20th on Mondays. There is one right now at the bottom of this slide. It says if you are in the February 16th, your instructor is Gina Cuck, journeyman candidate. She took on teaching beginner under supervision, technically. She has to technically, but she sounds like she's ready to go. She's going to have fun with it. I don't think she's here to introduce herself. I didn't look. If she is, maybe she can let me know, or on chat, or right after when it's a good interruption time. Introduce herself. Journeyman, we're still in Journeyman. We're a little over halfway through, I think, but I think we're going to have to start doing it twice a year. We need to get some people ready. If that Master Beekeeper course happens, Journeyman certification will be, I think, I do not know, an automatic prerequisite, or an equivalent might be acceptable. They haven't really worked on that. Oh, and apprentice, giving Thursday night people a chance to take apprentice coming up in March. Hive sites I kind of mentioned. Let's go ahead. We'll do a couple. In February, we have a couple more weekends, maybe the last weekend of February and a couple in March. And I don't know if Ron's on here. I was trying to talk him into committing, and he works a full-time paycheck job. He's not retired like me. He can't just spend his life, talking bees. I think he might want to, but he doesn't get that luxury like us retired people. But we can go through a lot. It's too cold to go into a hive. I don't want to get anybody's hopes up who's a beginner. We'd be looking at equipment. We can light the smoker. That's always one. It takes a little while to get the smokers going, unless you grew up like I did, heating with wood. I still heat with wood, and building campfires. If you've always gone out and turned the gas on the barbecue and lit it, this is a little different. You got to get embers and then smoke. How you stack up your boxes. Sometimes people just need a hands-on seeing it, just seeing, and they need to just see that the hives are facing the south and that they're wind protected, and looking at hive tools, just looking at jackets and trying one on. The sizing makes no sense that I've ever seen. But I tell people buy a little large and you can always keep it for your guest, but at least it will fit. And if you are interested, we still have some Saturdays, Sundays and such left in like April. May we need to kind of get into official hive sides so people can open up a hive, assuming the weather cooperates. It did not last year. Oh, the queen work, we're going to have a queen workshop this summer. And I overwintered, we had a short one last year. We only had like 8 or 10 people that really came out, tried grafting, looked at it. A few people actually helped out on the shifting hives. We will do it more formally this year, starting with making sure everybody knows queen physiology well enough, can commit to coming out like 4 times, and it will take a few weeks to do a really good, for sure, grafting project. And it takes, and you have fat, healthy, happy queen cells and fat, healthy, happy queens that are well mated. You have to get everything together: nutrition, timing. I'm not going to worry about strains or anything. It's mainly we are going through the steps so you can see how you do make your own queens. So details in March, but we won't sign up until April. And right now, the reserve queens, because one of the reasons you do this is to try to keep a couple extra queens and have them in the spring. You can sell them if you don't need them, or they can replace a queen you lost. And to do that, come on out to Hiveside and I'll show you how I'm doing the double nukes. Michael Palmer talks a lot, and he just, wow, he's got it all set up and figured out. Michael Palmer and his overwintering extra queens. He does a lot of overwintering in stacking 5-frame nukes on top of each other. He's very inspirational. The socials got put on hold, but we still need volunteers. They won't be back until May. We can't use the church until then. But there's lots of things. If you have something you'd like to do or help or show us how to do, even exactly how to put frames together and get them squared. And I like gluing all the joints with the right size nail, toenailing in and a little extra nail like that. If you're a do-it-yourselfer who could show that off, or you know how to make wax food wraps, I don't know if we could do candles, takes too long. I don't know, maybe lip balm would work or something like that. If you want to show off something like that, it would be a great way for us to all get together at St. Thomas out in Snohomish that is going to let us use it. Their facilities, like their coffee room. Oh, hive maintenance. I get really nervous when people sound like they're going into the hives too early. So I can't resist. Just can't resist this. We should be cleaning and prepping all of our equipment. If you're going to move a hive, get ready to do it. I wouldn't do it when the bees are in tight cluster. It might seem like, well, they're in cluster. But the problem with moving a hive when they're actually in cluster is, what if the cluster falls down? What if it's so cold they get separated? The queen gets separated. They separate into 2 small clusters. Something happens like that and they can't reform. And that's the same problem with going into your hives when it's too cold. Like today, my bees did not go out. I mean, it got pretty warm, sunny out there, but it was in the 20s last night. It's going to be in the 20s tonight. My bees know better, and I know better than to mess with them. Even if it's nice and sunny, say it does get to the high 40s, the bees still know, and they've got to keep the queen. And if they have brood, which is always possible in our mild winters, that they already have brooded up, if they've done that, they've got to keep that brood really warm. 92 to 94 degrees, almost our body temperatures, for the brood to survive and develop. However, on the other hand, the peeking under the telescoping lid, under the moisture shim, real quick checking the feed, 5 seconds really does save a hive. I am having a hard time gauging how much food they're actually using in a different type of winter. Usually I know they have lots, but the temperature keeps dropping in my area, keeps going back down again. And I figure it's Murphy's Law. You stop checking, you're going to miss the attention the hive did not need until you stop checking. So stay in monitoring mode, okay? Everybody, watch those entrances, clean them out. Watch that ground in front just to be sure that it looks like a normal drop-off of bees. Check the slide-out boards, especially if you're not believing me that the bees rob each other at this time of the year. You don't have robbing screens on, and the strongest hive wakes up, it goes next door and starts ripping into the honey stores of the hive next to it. In the newsletter, I put a picture of what ripped comb looks like. That's rob out. There's a picture there where it shows the raggedy edges that tell you when you go into a dead out, and you go into a dead out, if you left it there for a while, it's possible another hive came after the hive was already dead. But if you see those raggedy edges, you know that it got robbed either before the hive died or afterwards. Slide out boards help for the same reason. You're looking for bee parts and ripped up wax. It's like, it reminds me of cornmeal when I've seen it. Robbed out wax where it's just been ripped off and dropped because the robbers they're just going through and pillaging and plundering. And you're checking your dry feed when you check. So I'm really saying be careful about the temperature. Remember, yes, you might say, well, it's 50 degrees, but remember, the bees cannot comfortably fly. They may come out for their cleansing flights, and it's really hard to figure out how much food they use. I like this diagram over here. It says metabolic rate. Okay, that means how many calories do they need? The hive needs actually more when it's really cold, -20°C. Okay, down here it has a really neat, that'd be like 0 Fahrenheit, I guess. I'm reading this converter down here. And then they need the least when you're at about 50 degrees outside. That's the most efficient use when they cluster. But then look how much they need when it warms up. They start zooming when it goes to room temperature, basically. What is it? 25 is about room temperature. So where that happens, and it happens really fast. If it just warms up a little bit from that 50 degrees, then zoom, they start needing a whole bunch. But there's actually a sweet spot here where they use the least. And in our winters, we can get to that. I can't tell. So heft and weigh, and if you can, peek down and see the tops of the frames. I think this is an extra slide. Oh, and then I was going to say something about varroa. I had 2 topics I wanted to go into. Just because everybody's a little bit worried about, okay, last year I tried this, but it didn't really seem to work, or I couldn't really do it because I went on vacation. I mean, half a dozen things happen. There's reasons why a varroa treatment just doesn't work. Oh, before that, I have one emergency announcement. I keep talking to people and finding out that they've taken their inner cover out of their hive. And it came up talking about oxalic acid vaporizations. I look in the hive and I say, where's the inner cover? And they say, well, it was in the fall. They say, I took it out. I didn't know it's standard in a lot of parts of the country. Somebody tell me, this is a good discussion point. Tell me how many of you were told to take your inner covers out automatically because it might trap moisture instead of letting it get to the moisture shim. And okay, so people are taking their inner covers out. Well, I can kind of understand that. If you have a candy board, a Vivaldi board, a quilt board, okay, good moisture. I guess I kind of understand that. But if you're still doing OAV throughout the winter, late in the fall, and then early in the spring, how are you going to keep the OAV, the oxalic acid vapor, down in the brood chamber, it's just going to go up into the moisture shim and out any vents you've got. So I like inner covers. This would be a great discussion, but I wonder how many people here are doing it which way. I assumed that everybody was leaving their inner covers in because it slows the escape of heat that the cluster's generated. Yes, the cluster can't heat the whole hive, but it doesn't need Arctic winds rushing past it. And when I peek and I lift the telescoping cover, I'm counting on the fact that I can do that because I'm not lifting the inner cover and rushing a whole bunch of cold air through my hive. I'm not letting the hot air out and the cold air in a whole bunch. I'm doing a very gradual, small change. And then the inner cover is, well, it helps your bees not propolis the hive body to the outer cover. That's part of why you have an inner cover. But it also catches any condensation that does drip down. But a lot of us are using moisture shims. And I like it because it kind of shows me if the bees are brooding up in late January, February, and I haven't seen it yet, I can kind of tell that they're brooding up because the moisture jumps inside the hive. And it's not necessarily bad to see that dampness on my inner cover, but it's kind of a signal there's been a change. I also am a lazier even than mountain camp feeder. I just pour this granulated sugar around the oval hole in the inner cover. So this would be interesting to know how many people are doing this which way. Let's see. Advance. So the varroa problem. Half the year, it's really so cold we can't do an alcohol wash. Half the year, we can't reliably open up the hive just whenever we want to, especially when it's as cold as it was last spring. Although it stayed pretty good late in the fall. So we have this problem of how do we do the varroa treatment that we need to do at the time of the year that we need to do it. And you've seen this graph. I'm sure you've seen this graph so many times you're tired of seeing it. But the problem is our bees are the blue line and they peak, okay? Hopefully the nectar flow. Population should start dropping off, but as the population is dropping off, the mites have now peaked in population. They've had a wonderful time reproducing in our cap brood. And yes, if we could hit them, if we could knock this orange line down early, that would be ideal. But the varroa are hiding under the cap brood, so it's difficult. Good idea, but difficult. Oh, that's that funny anime. This is from Honeybee Healthy Coalition, in case you want to download this. Okay, just to stress, the bee here is carrying mites. The mite comes off right before this one gets capped over, sneaks down, sticks her little snorkel up, and hides in the jelly. Okay, if she's lucky, she gets one, maybe two offspring all the way raised, laying the eggs, raising, well, they raise themselves. I'm sure there's not a lot of parenting, I don't think, between varroa. Now the problem is those mites come out on that bee that emerged. And the one thing it doesn't show is that one mite that entered here, there's a very good chance that she is going to immediately come off and get back in another one. She's just going to shortcut right here. She's not going to spend any time in that adult bee. She's going to scramble quickly to get into another pupa that's ready to be capped over. Okay. I send out this treatment chart, and if anyone ever finds a better one, let me know. I put this together because I can't find one. And the reason why is there's probably mistakes on here. This is a very complicated chart. And I try to show that the 6 above, the 6 top treatments, and I'll send this out to anybody who hasn't already found it on the Facebook page, or I think I've got it on the website, but that's the next thing. I got the newsletters on, I got the calendar on, and now I'm going to get certain resources like this on the resources page. So there's 6 organic treatments that most people well, not most people. I am more comfortable with. A lot of people are actually more comfortable with the bottom three because they're easy to apply for long periods of time. They're just the synthetic ones that I don't like in the environment. But I admit they aren't as stinky, volatile as some of the upper ones that are organic and better for the environment. I think long term. So this is a long, complicated chart. It's the best I could figure out how to do. And it's what we can get in the United States. Now, how do you know when to treat, first of all? And then once you get the season, which treatment do you use? A lot of people have a calculator on scientificbeekeeping.com, which I can't make heads or tails of. It looks to me like Randy Oliver just pulled figures and stuffed them in there. And he's promising 90% knockdowns, and I don't really believe they're happening. So I like mycalculator.com. If you want to explain why you're thinking what you're thinking, go to mycalculator.com, and it sort of talks about, okay, where is your hive? How much brood do you think you have? What did you see when you last know what you saw? The count here, the count there. Okay, where are you on this? What should you do? And I have a lot of, and they're not always the most recent, but at least some instructions, which you are sometimes not given when you go to buy your treatments a couple doses at a time. When you look at that chart, you start to understand why oxalic acid has become the golden child of varroa treatments. In the long run, it's affordable, although you have to pay some startup costs. You can do it at any season or temperature or weather. You can even use it to check mite drop. Do it, see if mites drop onto your slide out board, and see if a treatment will have an effect. In the Journeyman Manual, WASBA actually recommended what many of us beekeepers have already been doing. Half the year we can't do an alcohol wash properly. We can't do it properly, where you go down into the brood nest, because we ain't supposed to be messing in that brood nest when it's this cold. It's what I call a soft chemical. The top 6 to me are a soft chemical, better for the environment. There's several ways to do it. You don't have to do the vaporization. You could do a dribble method, a spray. And the EPA has finally started putting on labels that any time of the year is good, with the honey supers on is good. And the amount used is starting to finally catch up. The science is catching up with what beekeepers are already doing. That's kind of a controversy in itself, but it turns out that finally Cameron Jack, University of, I think Florida, Georgia or Florida, is working on it. So I blew up the part of that chart that's the critical part, and I kind of rearranged things. So my red line would be here. I left out the red line. Oxalic acid, for example, and then we've got the essential oils, the thymol, then the one I like because it's got thymol, eucalyptol, menthol, and camphor in it, and then formic acid, 2 forms that we use. What's called Hop Guard, which is real sloppy, messy, and I don't know anybody that uses it twice, I don't think. Is there anybody that really likes it in here? It's really slimy, messy, but I think it's better for the environment than the 3 that are below it, that are the easy to use strips that you put in. You drop them into the hive, and you leave them for 42 to like 45. One of them actually goes to 56 days. Yeah. Apistan goes to up to 56 days, it says. Oops, sorry. Go back that one. But the hard part is the temperature. Look at the temperatures, because I put them right next to the name of what you probably buy it under. Okay, oxalic acid, that's the golden child. Anytime, although, let's be honest, if the bees are tightly packed together in a winter cluster, it ain't going to make much difference, right? I mean, that's like rain off a duck's back, you know, I guess oxalic acid off a bee cluster. Okay, so don't expect it. You're probably wasting your time irritating the bees and And I don't know that it would hurt them, but I wouldn't do it. But now some of the ones that people are very comfortable with require higher temperatures. Look at the next two that have the thymols, the essential oils. A lot of people are more comfortable with that than something that says acid at the end. Okay, 64 to 60 to 95 for the first one for Life Var. That's the one with the little black tablets that you break up the pieces, the wafers. Less effective, but I guess some effectiveness at 54 degrees. Ooh, how many months of the year are we going to have? And they're talking daytime temps. Are we going to have in the 64 range and above? A lot of people think this is something you can use in the spring or late fall. Maybe we had a pretty good fall, and it did keep coming up to the 60s in September, October. The other Tymol's a little bit better. Apiguard, that's the tray with the gel, but it still wants you to be above the average, to be above 60. Well, that does happen sometimes here. We could have an April that does that. If it starts to get really hot, 77, that's hot for Western Washington, you actually change the dosage. And actually, but you can use it all the way up to as high as the bees can stand, 104. Now, formic acid is tricky. That one is tricky. It's known that if you do the full dose, it's a good chance you're going to kill some brood, kill some workers, and it might impact the queen's productiveness or the way she's perceived by the bees. It might cause supersedure cells to be drawn out. Don't know if it actually hurts her directly, or if they start the supersedure without her actually being damaged, being hurt. So Mighty Way quick strips, there's that one. 50s, well, that's getting kind of doable late spring. But think of last spring. That's really hard. But, better than the 60, 64 above. But formic acid, if I was going to use it, and I have used it a few times in the past, I would use it more in the spring than in the fall. If I'm rotating treatments, I would pick formic acid for the spring, because if there's a supersedure problem, if some brood gets killed off, the queen's in full lay, the workers could start raising another queen. If I see the supersedure cells, I know there's a problem. Whereas in the fall, starting to close things up and not go in as often, I might not see that I needed a queen. I might not realize I had a queen event. So the formic acid, though, I could see that when it starts, the daytime temperatures are really getting to that 50. And we don't have the problem of super high temperatures that would cause troubles with it. Usually, there was that exceptional 3 days in June, that one summer when we hit 100 in a lot of Western Washington. But pretty much, it doesn't happen. Pretty safe. HopGuard is anything above 50. So 50 is starting to be a big number, and the next number is kind of like 60 or so, where you're deciding what you can do if you're going to rotate your treatments. Can you just do one? Maybe, but while I'm looking at this chart, I'm also thinking, those Tymols, especially that menthol and the Apiguard, those are known to help with tracheal mites. Maybe, and formic is thought to help with nosema, and maybe the essential oils too. People who rotate their treatments might have healthier hives, not because it's impacting the varroa as much as it's impacting something else. And actually, that is why people do not do separate treatments for tracheal mites, is we assume that some of what we're doing for varroa is impacting the tracheal mites and keeping them down. That's one reason that we don't worry much about it. We tell you about it when we go through classes, right? We talk about the tracheal mites, then we kind of drop it. But those last three are very attractive because the two at the bottom are pretty much any temperature, like oxalic acid. And the one, Epivar and chick mite. Apistan, that one, yeah, it should be 50. It should be 50. But you're putting it in long term, so it's having a long time a slow release effect. So I'm throwing all this out there so that people can sort of think about what do they want to do and why would they do what they do. And if you kind of write it out, I really want a nice graphic for this. Okay, what can I use first? Oxalic acid anytime, right? I'm not even going to bother to list that on the rest of this going down. But early in the spring, if you want to get an early start on those mites, you're kind of stuck with the three I don't really like and oxalic acid. Then if you can get to that 50 degrees, okay, now you can do the formic. And you can do all of the ones you did before. Apistan will work better. Actually, Apistan is the one up here that really shouldn't be for less than 50. I suspect people do, though, because it's so easy to put it in and the temperature is going to come up. Then when you get into summer, early fall, and taking the honey supers off, see, now that's when you could really do your thymols for sure. You've got above 50, the essential oils. And I would be careful about the Formic Pro, especially late, and avoiding high temperatures. The first 3 days are the critical. It's again, everything in beekeeping seems to be a not definite, but so you're trying to avoid really high temps the first 3 days. And if it goes up close to that, okay, your hive will probably be okay. But a fall supersedure risk does worry me. I would do it early, like July, early August, if I was going to try for that. Hop guard, of course, and those Thymols, the Apiguard, the Apilife Var, Apiguard having the menthol and the extra essential oils. And then those ones that the commercial beekeepers love, Apistan, Apivar, and Checkmate. And as much as I talk against them, I understand why. If you can't, you're going on vacation, whatever happens, you can stick them in and leave them, and they're doing something. A word of caution, though, because they're left in so long, because they are slow release, mites, there's a selection pressure that happens, and the mites that survive are going to be more resistant. So inside your hive for your year, that's not so important. But that's actually important for when you are getting nukes and packages from out of area and they've already been exposed to that pressure. That selection has already happened, and you buy mites with your bees. Did you know that your nukes and your packages come with free mites? Isn't that exciting? But the problem is they've been selected for, because those are what the commercial beekeepers are really using. And Apivar was failing. Canadian Beekeepers blog and a number of people anecdotally were saying, I have one hive, looks like I never treated it, and one that the Apivar worked on. It was particularly Apivar that people were saying failed. Okay, maybe I should take a break there because I just talked a whole bunch without letting anybody else. And then I have a really neat, just basically slideshow on all the nifty King. If you looked at the newsletter, all these posters, all these brochures, all these free materials out there. If you need to talk to your public landscaping group or gardeners group and try to convince them to put something in for the bees, I got materials on that. Okay, I should let somebody else talk though. Let's look at chat. Okay, the links are there. Robbing, yes, Ty's robbing video. Okay, Ty, you can brag about that, because I think there's a black shiny bee on there, which is supposed to indicate robber, on the Facebook discussion group page. 8-frame mediums, yes. Yes, Olympic Wilderness Apiary is everybody reading through the chat, has medium nukes. And yeah, and you can combine deeps with an 8-frame deep is easier to lift. And Tony's one of our resident Apimay specialists, although there's several other people who are doing Apimay now. I mean, that polystyrene or whatever it is has to be easier to lift. It has to weigh less. And it's got those bear-proof buckles. If you haven't looked at Apimay, Tony has to show some pictures. If you want to ask him.
last Saturday, of course we had new beekeepers, just classes. We were jam packed. We almost didn't have enough parking. We had a big turnout for the year, but I have double deep apamase, but I'm going to switch to the Ergo hybrid setup, which is a bottom board, a deep, a Western, and then, if you have a feeder or whatever, and then the top vented top cover. And for that setup is about $360 plus another $40 if you're going to get the snap-in plastic frames. But I have a steam cleaner, and this thing was a dead out. I had a late swarm in July. Queen disappeared. I let all the bees go so they can go into the other hives, and I just let it sit out there collecting moss. And I cleaned it out probably in a half hour. I steam cleaned it and sterilizes everything and just looks brand new again. And so it's all ready to go. I don't have to paint it because it's high density polyurethane, and it's all food grade, non-toxic, lead free. And then the plastic snap-in frames are ABS food grade plastic, and I got them all ready to go. So they're nice to have.
Okay, so Mike is on here too, and she said she's putting her apamase sets together and combining with Man Lake Deeps. Okay. Yeah, you have to go look at it. And I don't know, is there a good website? Is there a link, Tony?
You can go to their website. They're in Mesa, Arizona. To spell that, it's APIMAYE.com, and you'll hit the USA one, and they have complete everything on the subject and facts, so you can check and if you have questions. And they also have they have a bottom board that will adapt to the wooden ware. So if you have wooden Langstroth, you can buy the wooden board. You can buy the entrances, the round ones that have 4 different types of openings or closures, and they're real cheap, and they just screw right in. And also the latches, they sell a pair of latches for $20, and they have hooks on them, so you can adapt those to your to your woodenware if you have
right. So you can, okay, so like Mike could do that too. Oh, and Mike is doing the Hive Alive, right? The Hive Alive fondant with the Irish seaweed. That's spoiling.
Yeah.
Gourmet food.
My gals are really chewing that up. I mean, I could hear my hive today from 5 feet away. They were humming. They want to go. They're not going to like next week.
You're a little lower then. You're what altitude?
We're at Elk Plain. I'm 400 feet above sea level.
No, that's the same. Where's Elk Plain?
Close to Graham. That's more popularly known.
Okay, inland, wind protected, kind of, or?
Actually, we're up on a small hill, so but mine are in a green. I dismantled a greenhouse, so my greenhouse has just a roof and panels on one side. So I'm really spoiled, but they're very happy. They really want to go. I mean, I was really impressed that I could hear them from like 5 feet away. I'm like, goodness, I'm afraid to get in there in the spring.
You're going to have to. So you got a good rain shelter then.
Yeah, they really like it there. I'm gonna.
But it's not overheating. You're missing part of the sides, right? So it's not overheating.
Yep. Okay. I took all the sides off and just left the door on one side.
Rain shelters. Somebody ought to kind of do a study on rain shelters. I think they help. It's like some people. I think so too. Yeah, and I think it is evaporative cooling. That's my only, okay, this is anecdotal, totally, I'm making this up. It's like, but honestly, I think.
Yeah, mine face southeast too. So that helps them in the morning. They get the
Perfect.
sun right away. So, you know, I look for that arrangement with a shelter. It works quite well for me anyway, where I am.
So did you find your perfect apiary location and everything right away, or did it take you a couple of years?
I didn't know I found that nice spot because we had this greenhouse and I planned on getting bees many years ago. And finally, a few years ago, I did. And I dismantled that greenhouse not knowing that it faced southeast.
Mm-hmm.
So that worked to my advantage. But my son, I'm going to put a hive on his property this year. And I'm going to have him face it southeast also. And I think he's going to put it in his micro farm. And I think I'm going to have him build a small rain guard and put over it and see how it works, just to experiment and see what happens.
I forgot to ask, should I go ahead and pause recording? You know, does it make a difference?
I don't care.
Yeah. Should I a little bit? Maybe for a while. Okay. Okay, we're back to recording again with this idea of maybe we can put together a digital library. If not, I have these files. Just ask me if you need any of these files. There's just some are science. Okay, there's the science stuff out there. But sometimes you want to explain the difference between a solitary bee and a honeybee and that they are alike. And you just need to be able to talk about that. Here's the kind that makes its own little like a mason bee, makes little cells for each egg it lays. This is jumbled up. This is one of the best books ever, this 100 Plants to Feed the Bees. I put Eli's list under Facebook discussion group under files that I tend to refer to. And I was looking for late summer, fall for the dearth times. Oh, here's the bee. Comparing a honeybee is the same, but it's done in a group. And then a honeybee doesn't just emerge and just start doing what it's going to do for the rest of its life. It has to still develop and learn its jobs and go through. If you're talking to kids, you'd probably say it that way. Temporal polyethism is a bit of a mouthful. This one, I couldn't find the slideshow, but this is an incredible set of photography. I think that these are all different species of wild bees, and this is one of the ones you can download it, and we've got the digital file so that it was offered free for at least a while, and then I think probably out of print now. And to use, give credit, of course, for educational purposes. Then there's just some nice diagrams again about the seasons. If you were explaining very basic how honeybees go through seasons, that surprises people all the time. People say, really? Bees don't fly around in the winter? Well, duh, no. But anyway, we don't say that. We are very polite to our public. There's wonderful bumblebee posters, and everybody, probably now that you're a beekeeper, you have noticed that some of them look very different in the different sizes. This is a wonderful poster, again, in the high resolution PDF file that you can just take and get printed. And relative sizes. This is kind of nice. It shows the relative sizes of the different bumblebees. Some of them are a lot different in size. This is Western United States. Later on, I have the Eastern United States. And then, okay, everybody talks about bumbles. If you were going to give a presentation on bees, this is a sort of chart you might need. You might say, well, actually, did you realize that bumblebees are only this little part? And with the honeybees, this little part, look at all these other different families of bees. And then you could kind of go into what they are and why they're different. There's the ones that dig. The mason bee is pretty well known. This is a real wonderful one to just sit and you could talk for a while on just this one poster. And the printing budget for places you go to present, sometimes they have a printing budget. You don't have to pay to print. They're quite happy to print it out. Schools especially, maybe the teachers can't get what they need something else, but they can get something printed. Then let's see, there were so many of these. Then that leads into different categories. These are downloadable. This is native plants, pollinators and nativeplants.com. and just more illustrations. A lot of Boy Scout groups, Girl Scout groups, schools will decide they're going to have pollinator habitat, and they will think they should get a beehive. And that's usually a disaster because a beehive is a liability. Not everybody's comfortable with it being there, but cute little bees that kind of are on the ground, and you can set up a little mason bee nest, nice little condo colony, and declare a certain area to be pollinator nesting habitat. That often is really popular and something very doable. Everybody can contribute, and it's not considered the hazard. The solitary bees especially are not the hazard that people perceive honeybees to be. So Xerxes is great. Xerxes has all kinds of on everything. This is bring back the pollinators. What can you do? Take action, share the information. Okay, here's another one of those. You had the big poster of all the kinds of bees. You can go off into ground nesting. Huge posters. I'm sorry, this is all jumbled up. But again, I have the downloads, the files for these. This is a brochure that covers our area, Western Washington and BC. And it's really, really neat. It says it's a regional guide for Pacific Lowland Mixed Forest Province. And it was something that Pollinator Partnership and NAPPC did together with Canada. So it covers our area, the cool Northern Maritime. Stop me anytime you want to on something, but I just really wanted people to know all this stuff is out there. Rain gardens are really big right now. At least they were pre-COVID. There was a period where there was a lot of funding for them, but realistically, they are a good way to let water slowly settle into the ground instead of rushing off to down into sewer systems, drains down the road. Xerxes again, they do the most incredible, this kind of plant, and when they do these wonderful tables, exactly what it is, when does it bloom? Look at this top right across the top, bloom period, common name, scientific name, life cycle, flower color, height. Height is very important. You don't want to plant something that's going to be 5 feet high if you really want to be able to see over it, or you want to mow it down at the end of the flowering season. Okay, you want to get something that's more like inches. A lot of these posters come as a teaching aid. And so if you're presenting to a class and they're talking about pollinators and seeds or something, if it's connected to planting things and it connects in, and there's a whole lesson plan, a lot of free lesson plans out there, but sometimes you just want a good visual so you can talk, or the teacher can put it on the wall and the parents know that the kids have been discussing this. ID, some people really love ID. Here's Bees of Oregon. Oregon has a little bit better master gardener and environmental things, I think, than we do. More things available. Even their master beekeeper program and such is better than what we have. It's just the way they've approached things. Beautiful. Again, have the full high resolution download. Lots of, again, Xerxes, lots of stuff on conservation. Meadowscaping is what I would kind of call this. The idea is you scatter wildflowers out there and plan to mow them down after they finish blooming, scattering their seeds again, and they'll seed themselves in, or you might help them out, and through the seasons. This is something that either you have a lot of land, or there was something passed as a result of the Washington State Pollinator Task Force. And they passed a thing, I'd have to go look the RCW up, but it said that if there's monies put into public landscaping, a certain amount has to be used for pollinators. And it wasn't always specific on whether it was native or not. Honeybees always benefit some. So it benefited everyone, but it was like 25% of public landscaping. I'm not sure if they passed the 25%, but they did pass something that said existing monies must include habitat mitigation, offset, and such. And part of that is educating everybody about pesticides. If you go out and talk to people about pesticides, and if you talk to gardening groups and such, for gardening groups, you need something on pesticides often, and you often need something about forage. And most of the forage maps that you will ever look at are hopeless when it comes to Western Washington. So you go to talk to your local gardening group, and they have this idea that they're going to take some Northwest pollinator seed mix and scatter it around. Everything's just going to be great for honeybees, all the bees, and then they can't even get the thing to grow because the soil is too cold, wet, and partially shaded over here. And this map illustrates why. Look what they did to Western Washington. They put us in with part of the Great Plains. I don't think we have a lot of things that grow in Western Washington that grow in that part of the Great Plains. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. Xerxes, this is the book that I picked my list for late summer, fall, for the dearth period that is the worst in my area, and I think kind of in Western Washington. It's a great book. This is how it goes through one plant at a time, 100 of them, and shows you what they look like, gives you all the information you could ever want on them, including, are bees even interested in it? Some things are pollinated by flies, hummingbirds, various other animals. But this one has, over on this side, it has a legend. And this particular thing called meadow foam, which is actually a crop that grows very well. It's an oil. I guess they take the seeds and make oil out of it. I had never really heard of it. But that's a honeybee icon up there, followed by a native bee icon underneath. So and look at the region on the geographical map. I love the way it shows you this grows in this area. Actually, it loves the cool maritime climate. And it's a good way to avoid the problem of a lot of ornamental cultivars. We're not bred to attract bees. Wild roses, your bees love them. All the native roses, Nootka and such. But the beautiful roses that you buy at the florist, the bees might spend some time on them, might not. Interrupt me anytime you'd like to. Anybody that's used these resources or something. But I just really wanted everybody to see the State Noxious Weed Control Board puts out ideas for what to plant. And that's partly because they were hoping that the invasives that our European honeybees love, because our European honeybees came from Europe, which is where a lot of these invasives came from. Thistles and the wrong holly and the wrong fennel and the butterfly bush that I think it's pretty wet around here. It's not so bad. We have a native butterfly bush, though, that would be better to have the bees actually using. So it gives you some alternatives. Oh, what did I do? I did something interesting. Okay. Let me see if I can Control Z back to where I was. Okay, I have managed to get tech stumped again. I might have to stop the share for just a second and start it again and see if it'll let me get it under control. Okay. Nope, it didn't take it back. Hi there. What did I do? I did something. I touched a control that I shouldn't have. Let me go back and see if I can find my. No, that didn't do it. I'm sorry. Anyone have any comments while I'm trying to figure out how I did that? How I messed it up. All I could think of is to close it and open it back up again, and then it will probably be fine.
Hey, Eli, Steve.
Yeah. Hi, Steve.
Hey, I talked to Casey Tompkins today. I'm not sure if anybody's mentioned him.
Because I don't put him on the nukes and packages list because he's a one-time. Has he finished getting orders yet?
He can take 12 more nukes. That's all he's got left. So if somebody wants to get a hold of him, you can post his phone number. I can give it to you now if you want. But
Can you put it in chat?
Say again?
Can you put it in chat?
Hold on. Let me see if I can pull out of my phone. Hold on. Yeah. Anyway, so he's picking them up on, I think he's delivering them April 4th, I believe. Let me see if I got his number here. Yeah, I'll put it in chat. That was my big thing. And another hive of mine has died, Eli.
No, you can't do that. You can't lose.
Yeah, I think I didn't do the treatment. Remember, in the year I didn't do it, so I think the mites got him. So,
We'll have to talk about that because it should have. Yeah,
I didn't do the last treatment. Remember, I was going to do it, and then I didn't do it. So
I know you keep going and having a life.
Yeah.
Okay, is escaped ornamental showing up here on the screen? Am I successfully sharing pictures of escaped ornamentals?
I see escaped ornamental.
Okay, this time I'll be more careful about where I click. Okay, so anyway, there's all these ideas, and if you're talking to a gardening group or to a group that you want to talk them out of a golf course lawn, even public landscaping or something, if you could get some citizen input, this is called mowscaping. You just mow where you need to have the pathway, especially if there's wildflowers. And if you're planting a meadow like this and planting a meadow, and you only need to walk through to get this place or that place and can let the flowers just bloom until the end of the year and knock them down, this is a great system called mowscaping. And hedgerow planting, that's another mitigation type thing where you might get public monies, or you might even justify the fact that that's actually what you're doing over there. That isn't a bunch of weeds over the side of my field. That is a hedgerow. Okay. I'm not being lazy, not mowing my lawn. I'm letting the dandelions bloom. And there's lots of pictures. Here's that idea of a pollinator habitat, planting that for that and putting in a space for them to nest. And the diversity really helps the native bees a lot. Lots. I mean, I have just slide after slide after slide. I can stop anytime, but bumblebees. Here's the Eastern United States one. These are just gorgeous pollinators. And a lot of them, the writing on them leads to like a teaching lesson curriculum. And at the bottom of these posters, one of the things that's really neat about the bottoms of these posters is that they, oh, I did it again. I'm sorry, I did it again.
Try hitting escape, Eli.
Escape and see if that'll do it. Oh, yes. Thank you, Ty. Okay. Okay. I've been rescued. Okay. At the bottom. See, the problem is I can't see my white signals, my white down at the bottom, my white icons. I can't see them in, I can't see my white cursor on the white icons on the white background. Don't put white backgrounds on PowerPoint slides. But these posters and everything are just wonderful. They're NAPPC. They put a bunch out. But at the bottom, look at all those groups that are interested in pollinators, the Forest Service, the national parks, and they all put out materials. The trick is getting it together into one file so that you can find it when you need it. When somebody said, could you talk about native bees? Here we go. And they're numbered. And the reason they're numbered on their little tushes is because they that relates to an informational meeting, which is kind of nice because I hate showing a poster of something and somebody says, well, what's that little bluey looking one? And if I can pull out the key, I feel a lot smarter.
What'd be fun, Eli, is if we could get them in a portfolio of
Something.
them in their normal printed, the originally printed format, then large scale, because you can't read, if I do this on 8.5 by 11, or, maybe tabloid would work, but tabloid printers are a little hard to find and expensive to maintain. But
Yeah, I pay. I just go to a printing place and pay to get it.
But if we built a library of them in a portfolio that we could check out and go do a class with it, that way you've got, large scale, 3 by 4 or whatever size for a classroom or something, so they can see it. It's not the little ones, but if you had one that, so you could check out the portfolio. And if you contact them as you're being SKBA, they might actually send you the original material.
The downloads I have, so the high resolution
I know, but they might send you printed ones because that they printed them. They printed so many copies, and then they're going to give them out, to the select few, if you ask for the original format.
It's worth trying, except that they really went to this everybody download and everybody do their own color copy printouts. They started that a long time ago, like years ago that started. And that's when they started. They were selling them at that time for the fundraiser. A lot of these were, but it's worth asking. We just got to find the right person. Okay, now I want to be careful not to push the incorrect place. Okay, here we go. And then some of these, they're intended. The pages, these photos come page size.
Yeah.
Version. Okay, so a lot of these were teaching educational material. This one's fun. I had to look at this twice. This is a pocket guide to identifying the Western bumblebee. It says that on the lower left. It's a folded sheet of paper. Isn't that kind of a neat craft for kids? I like that. That would just be a neat thing to take and the kids could fold it up. And then there's lots more posters. I mean, just poster after poster, a lot of them coming with keys, like this one, coming with keys. A forb, that's a little more, that would be advanced for a lot of kids, but for a gardening group, that would be something. Oh yeah, forbs. It basically means stuff that kind of blooms but isn't a tree. And it's and it can be perennial or annual as far as I know. And then just gorgeous pictures. Yeah. Did somebody have a definition of forb? This one came with all kinds of the pollinator equation. Plants for pollinators, pollinators for plants. It all works together, the ecosystem. I could see this could be really fun. And it comes again with a key so that you don't look like an idiot not knowing what these things are. Then that Washington State Pollinator Task Force, a lot of this could help if the city's going to do some landscaping, if you could figure out how to get a little citizen input and actually have recommendations. This grows in cities. That would be wonderful. Trees are a big problem in cities. They want to have trees. Trees are good for bees, and trees are really good for bees and pedestrians. If the trees are a little bit tall, the bees are going over the heads of the pedestrians. They never even see them. And if they do realize they're there, they go, oh, I guess they're far enough away. So this kind of thing could really be good for presentations. I'm thinking we've got to grab some of that money and get it into the environment. And then being a member of a nature preserve in your backyard, putting a sign up can be really something that it motivates people to do things for habitat, like provide the water. Some ideas on how to do that overwintering habitat. And I think you need some signage for people to know that you're not just leaving a mess out there. You are actually doing something. Urban beekeeping, again, that's where the public monies are going to be, probably. So this was a really nice one from University of California. There's a pollination chart for kids. This is a little jumbled up. Just how it all comes to, I think these could be some great lesson plans. I think I put some empties there. Okay. A lot of these beautiful, beautiful posters. Yeah, if we got them all printed out, we've got the money, and I've done it. I have some that I've used for presentations in the past. I don't know how long they last before they fade out. Some of them might be better off if they got laminated. If anybody really knows how that's done. And it's not just bees. Bees are part of a bigger thing. Cutting down the pesticide usage. That's hard to get people to understand. If it kills an insect, it kills an insect. A bee is an insect. You probably aren't going to be able to spray pesticides and have no impact on bees. So part of an approach for like a gardening or public landscaping or parks approach to doing better things, making better choices about planting and such, if you realize that some of what you want in your garden does have 6 legs and it's supposed to be there, it's beneficial. That could actually be a good way to get people to cut down. People always have questions about bumblebees. And this is, for example, how they ship bumblebees for greenhouses. They're actually more effective at some things, which is a kind of fun thing to put in, that we need our native pollinators, and especially Bombus impatiens is the one that's really good. I'm not sure it's a native. I think it's a native, maybe not to this area, but I think it is native to the United States. Pesticide usage, if you need that, if you need to prove that pollination makes a difference, here's underpollinated fruit. I never really thought about it, but that's what this is showing you, is it didn't get the pollination for what it's actually multiple little fruits, making one strawberry to do that. Well, anyway, I just raced through that just because I wanted people to see there's really a lot out there. So let me go ahead, and I will probably just stop the recording at this point.